In the last week of April, I began to see more clearly things that I'd been picking up on over a period of months. And what was qualitatively different to me about the intelligence, and I remember very clearly, it was the 3rd of May, it was on a Friday, and what was qualitatively different about the threat stream we had seen was it was multiple threat streams that were all perhaps coming together in time. And what's not new are threat streams. What was new was a pattern of threat streams that extended from Yemen, so threats emanating from Yemen, threats in the Gulf, and threats in Iraq. We watched that very carefully on Friday evening. We sent a message at that time to Iran just to make sure that they understood that we would hold them accountable should something take place in the region, that there was not an opportunity for them to do things and then claim it wasn't attributable to Iran. So we wanted to mitigate the risk of miscalculation. We also saw in the intelligence that perhaps there was a question about both the will and the capability of the United States to respond. And so throughout the weekend, I had a dialogue with General McKenzie, who's our commander at the United States Central Command. And by Sunday morning, we recommended to the Secretary of Defense that the Abraham Lincoln carrier strike group that was in the Mediterranean be immediately ordered to the United States Central Command. By the way, we averaged more than 2 carrier strike groups on station in 2012 in the Central Command at any given time. We had 0 on the weekend of the 3rd, the 4th, and 5th of May. And we also sent bombers there, as well as some Patriot missile systems. Those were designed to address what I saw as a gap in perception. So we wanted to make sure that we addressed 3 things to mitigate the risk of miscalculation. One, we wanted the Iranians to know that if they did anything, it would be attributable to them. Number 2, we wanted them to know that we had the capability to respond in the event that deterrence fails, and that was the force elements that we sent in on the weekend of the 3rd to the 5th of May. And the last was to make sure that those force elements then were a manifestation of our will to respond. This was all designed to enhance deterrence. And again, what I would argue was qualitatively different was we saw something that looked more like a campaign than an individual threat. And it was the geographic span and the perception that that activity would be try to be synchronized in time that caused us to look at that threat differently than 40 years, by the way, of malign activity by the Iranians. So malign activity and threats to our forces by the Iranians were not new, but a more widespread, almost campaign-like perspective for the Iranians was what we were dealing with. And in any event, by the way, people can question the veracity of the intelligence. All I would say is, since that weekend, there have been ships that have been hit with mines. There have been UAV strikes. There have been rocket strikes in the proximity of the United States Embassy in Iraq. All that activity has happened since the weekend of the 3rd, 4th, and the 5th. So I viewed this purely through a military lens. And then last week's force elements that we sent in the wake of that weekend, General McKenzie and I continue to have an ongoing dialogue about what might be the proper posture in the light of tensions that exist today. And we all can see that there is a difference in the tensions that exist. And General McKenzie and I had a conversation, and we focused in on what do we need to ensure that we have a proper level of force protection for our people in the region. And so if you look at the specific capabilities that we flowed to the region, those were designed to enhance our force protection, and they were accompanied by a message that this is not intended to be a provocation. This is not intended to reinforce our offensive capability in the region. This is designed to protect our people, much like the previous force elements we sent in were designed to enhance our deterrence. And so that's where we are today.